What's good, Foundation Nation? We are here today with the disc review of the crank from Discraft. This is a Z crank I have here. The crank, I think, is a little bit overlooked in the Discraft lineup. Everybody likes throwing with the pros throw, and that's reasonable. You know, I can understand that. So a lot of times you're reaching for a Zeus or for a Force, but I think the crank is a great disc that basically allows, it takes a little bit less arm speed to get the kind of flight that you really desire out of those Zeuses and Forces that you see, you know, the top pros throwing and flipping up and turning and all that stuff. The flight numbers on the crank are 13.5, -2.2. It's a 1.3 on Discraft's stability scale. This is a pretty true 13 speed, I think, as far as rim width is concerned. Pretty wide in the hand. This crank in particular is pretty flat, which I think is gonna, I used to throw cranks a good bit. I think that's gonna indicate this is a little more understable one. You can get them with a subtle dome, and then they're gonna have a little more stability to them. But the crank is meant to just kind of be a Hyzer flip. You know, I think they released this with the intention of this being like a max distance disc. I think it can accomplish that. They make this in a variety of different plastics. Like I said, we have the Z model here. It's a pretty comfortable disc. A little wide for my liking. I think there's a lot of times a 12 speed rim width is kind of my sweet spot, but doesn't mean there isn't a place for it. We're going to throw this out there. We have a little bit of tailwind right now. We're going to throw this out here flat. I expect it to probably turn a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what it does. All right. Just over the soccer goal there, almost had hit the crossbar challenge, but that actually had a great flight to it. In that tailwind, I was able to throw that low and flat. The tailwind was definitely helping the stability a little bit, but it turned a little bit and then came out at the end. The crank, because it is such a fast, wide rimmed driver, it is still going to want to fade at the end. That's just kind of a characteristic of discs with that kind of rim. But definitely gets out there quickly and has a pretty fun flight to it. So we'll see what happens on some other throw angles. We're going on a little bit of Hyzer now. We got a decent headwind, probably 5 to 10 miles an hour. So I expect this to flip up. This disc is not really meant for headwinds. I would consider this more of a tailwind or just calm wind situation type disc. But doesn't mean it's not useful at all. It's just gonna turn a little bit more, most likely. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna hit it pretty hard. Yeah, that's about right. Hit it pretty hard with a good bit of Hyzer. It flipped up, got to turn. It didn't dump or anything. It just kind of coasted to the right, never came out at the end. But that's not it. That wasn't an unuseful, you know, flight for a headwind. You know, if you got to get a shot to go left to right, there's nothing wrong with that. So pretty nice flight, not bad. So we're gonna go ahead on forehand now. The crank is a pretty useful disc on forehand, I think, especially for players like myself who might not have the huge forehand, but want to be able to throw shots, you know, that need to carry things or get to the basket on those further forehand throws. It has a very comfortable forehand grip. I have a little bit of tailwind, not a ton, so I should be able to throw this pretty true, pretty flat, and hit it pretty well here. Yeah, so that's a pretty forgiving flight there. I got that one a little bit higher and nose up than I would have liked, but still it held pretty straight. That I didn't get as much turn as I would have liked, but even when it crashed, a lot of more stable discs, if you have a lower speed like myself, the angle is so crucial. If I'm throwing at something like a destroyer and I don't get over on it, it's gonna, if I throw it nose up like that, it is gonna crash way right. Whereas that disc, I think, fell probably 20 yards right of where it was released. So having a little bit less stability kind of helps you out for more of a forgiving throw. So yeah, solid result on the forehand. So for the Foundation certified score, we're gonna give the crank an 8, an 8.0 exactly. I think the crank is definitely underrated. You know, there's a reason it's not super well known. You know, every amazing disc I think is thrown by the pros because that's just how they, you know, they figure out what is the best. But I do think the crank gets slept on a little bit, and I think everybody should, you know, give one a try if you're looking for some more distance drivers to put in your bag. All right, that's going to conclude our review of the Discraft crank. Make sure to check out our link in the description if you're interested in picking up a crank. You can learn more about the disc on our site. If you want to win this crank, this exact one that I'm holding, we're going to be giving this away. All you have to do is comment down below how tall you think Hunter is, and we're going to be picking one, probably somebody who guesses it right, I would guess, and they're going to win this exact disc. We're going to send it out to you within a week. So make sure to get on that if you want this crank here. Other than that, we'll see you in the next review.